Welcome to another episode of ShortCasts with Ryan. Today is a super special episode where we're having our friend Patrick Pulliam back on the podcast. I'm not going to go into too much details about Pat since he's been on the podcast before, but today we're going to be talking about a handful of things from real estate, how COVID affected the real estate market. We'll talk about new and emerging real estate technologies, how to build and own your first home, how younger home buyers are influenced by media when it comes to real estate. We'll also talk a little bit about fatherhood and some of the lessons he's learned from fatherhood, such as being intentional with your time, a little bit about time management, patience, motivation, and of course, building family habits. But without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. For more content, you can visit realwithryan.com. But thank you for listening and hope you enjoy. All right, Pat, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
So many of you listening to this podcast will, recognize Pat. For those of you listening to the audio version, there is a video version that we're going to post, so you'll have the opportunity to see the voices behind these characters. So definitely recommend you checking that out. But Pat, you've been on the show a few times, man. How's it going?
Hey, pretty good, man. Pretty good. I feel like there's always some sort of change going on. But I'm happy to be on the show today, get to chat about some different things. Got a lot going on. So, it's a good time to talk.
Yeah, for sure. And super happy to catch up and have you on the podcast, kind of starting off this new series of having conversations with more people and trying to get into the lives of others, see what other people have going on, and learn from others as I've been on a pretty big internal kick the last few months of just kind of reflecting. So super happy to get out of my personal comfort zone and chat with other people. And
Love
Pat's a
it.
great place to start. So, Pat, so you say you've been up to a lot of stuff. I think the last time we spoke, people understood that you were in real estate and that you were working on your own real estate business. And that you also had a few other projects going on. I think NWA Tastiest might have been one of those. But Pat, what have you been up to kind of professionally in the last year or so?
Yeah, so we officially started our team, the future team. I believe last time we talked, we had already kind of put that in motion, but some pretty cool things going on there. There's two of us now, Grant and I, and we are actively growing that team. So, doing that, we are listing and selling homes left and right, trying to build that business and just just go. The market's
Mhm.
been something pretty crazy all across the United States. Now it's cooling off a little bit, so we're going through a transition phase there with the way that we'll be marketing homes and dealing with clients. But besides that, it's full steam ahead always. So
Yeah, pedal to the metal. Wouldn't expect anything less. I actually am a little bit curious to hear some of what you think about the real estate market. So, if you were to sum up like COVID for you and your real estate business and kind of what you dealt with through COVID, I know we're in Northwest Arkansas, so there might be a little bit of a difference here than nationally. But we had low interest rates. I'm sure things were kind of weird with people maybe not wanting to tour as many houses, things like that. But how was running a real estate business through the heart of COVID, and kind of did you learn anything or take anything away from that?
there were so many learning points during COVID, and this is my fifth year in the business, so I feel like I've seen a couple of different seasons unfold. But at the time, 2020 was 2 years ago, so I was in the middle of trying to kind of really start to develop what I now call a team, and um, definitely missed some opportunities to capitalize, but also learned a lot. So COVID happened, and it scared a ton of people. A lot of buyers put the brakes on buying homes and kind of caused this weird stall in the market. And then before you knew it, our interest rates were super low, and um, we all of a sudden had really low inventory. People didn't want to sell because they didn't want to
Yeah.
leave, and then buyers wanted to buy because we have a desirable area here. But across the United States, we just had a lot of kind of pausing on the seller side, and all that led to a huge hike in the real estate market and seeing prices go up and bidding wars kind of ensue on these properties. And um, we we uh, we had to make some changes. We had a lot of clients that were not wanting to get out, not wanting to shake hands, not wanting to walk through other people's houses. So we saw a huge hike, of course, in the sales in Germex and
Mhm.
wipes and stuff like that. But walking into a house and on the front desk, there being Germex and a note that says, please, cover your mouth and wash your hands off and don't touch anything was kind of a norm.
Mhm.
So and we still see it, of course, just from a safety precaution standpoint, but just stuff like that. But one of the things that I definitely wish we could have capitalized on more was doing video walkthroughs, and we eventually got around to
Mhm.
doing that. But really seeing that, like, before COVID, working from home was an anomaly, I guess you could say, and now it's a
Mhm.
norm. And the people who are really on the front side of that, especially in our industry, capitalize a lot. And we came around to it, and we have a really good system now for video walkthroughs for clients who are either not wanting to get out, not able to get out, or just from out of state. And we've learned a lot from the development of that. Now that's impacted our industry. So yeah.
Yeah, man, a crazy time. Yeah, you're talking it, and it kind of made me think about, here I am with my house here in Northwest Arkansas, super lucky to have it.
Yeah.
But that I think at this point in my home buying journey require a home office space. Like I think that's probably something a lot of people could, look at 3 bedroom, 2 bath houses
Yeah.
and that didn't have an office or a work from home space and be okay with that. I imagine so many buyers across the US and maybe in the world are like, man, it is almost a necessity to have a space
Right.
in your house that you can work from home. I know I don't think I would be able to leave this house or buy a different house that didn't have a home office space. So just an interesting thought. Have you seen people requesting specifically good work from home spaces, or have you noticed anything like that?
We definitely have, and it's a cool selling point because before this all happened, the office was a bonus thing, and it was kind of geared
Hmm.
towards the man who wants to have his own desk at the house and has a bookcase, maybe with a couple of books from coaches in the past, the stereotypes, but um, now it's you go into our homes and people are setting up their fourth bedroom as a legitimate office with a nice desk
Hmm.
in there and a chair like the one you're sitting in with a whole computer setup because that's where they work and that's where they're making you know the money that provides for their family. Like, that is where they work. There's no other place. So it's really cool and interesting. And houses that have had kind of desk setups and office setups already have benefited from that as well. So that's pretty cool.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no, super, super interesting. Another thing that I kind of thought of was, just this thought that I feel like some people in our generation are given a bad rap for maybe being complacent or lazy, or this younger generation not being hardworking or never
Yeah.
going to buy a house. You're a younger real estate agent. I know, lots of people in real estate tend to be a little bit younger. But from the home buyer's perspective, have you seen anything in the last few years from the younger home buyers that might have been surprising, or just anything that, have to comment about young people getting homes or looking to get homes?
It's interesting. There's a huge divide. I love that you said that. There's a huge divide. TikTok is a massive game changer in the real estate industry because, as you know, there are videos that go viral, and that touch on specific subjects. And even though
Mm,
I'm not maybe a cooking person, I'll get online and I'll see a viral video about cooking, right? So we learn kind of
mm,
through the viral motions of things, uh, different skills and stuff. So there are a couple of big videos over the past couple of years through TikTok and Reels and social media that have gone pretty viral about real estate investing and buying
mm,
and purchasing properties and how to properly do that at a young age and how to buy one, two, three houses if you need to. And so where it was traditionally pretty difficult and maybe confusing for a young person to go, hey, I want to buy a house now.
mhm.
It's become a little more common for someone to say, I want to buy a house. I want to make that investment. I know that that's something that I can do because I've seen, the fact that I'm able to buy a house with 3% down. I never knew that. And I want to buy this house because it'll make a good rental later on. And it's funny because we watch videos and stuff, for our own kind of, entertainment, but then those have actually turned into informational pieces. So in 2020, I probably had, I don't know, 10 different people message me on social media saying, um, hey, we really interested in buying a piece of land and building a house. And I
Mm.
figured it out a couple weeks later that there was a video that was really popular from a real estate investor who was basically encouraging people to find a nice piece of land and build rather than purchase a house, and how that like swayed so many people into
Wow.
thinking that that was a so the impact. And I know the question wasn't about social media, but the impact of viral videos and stuff kind of encourages this generation of people to take action in different ways. So yeah,
Yeah. No, no, that's great. It normalizes, people getting homes and makes that information more accessible. And,
for sure.
I think maybe 10, even 20 years ago, someone below the age of 30 buying a house was kind of like an anomaly, or at least that's what it felt like
Right.
because you don't see many people like that. But I think, yeah, you're right. With this more information and social media and things like that, you now get to see all these people who are young and getting homes. And definitely in this area, it's still super ripe for that, which is one of the great, things about Northwest Arkansas that I love so much. Um, yeah, so that's great. Another thing, so you mentioned people building homes.
Yeah.
This is something that has always been on basically my bucket list. So me and my girlfriend Emily, we always for the past few years we've been together have basically this list of dream requirements that we want to
Yeah.
put in the house that we build, our dream house that we build. Um, what are your thoughts on people building homes? Is that a decent option for most people? Is that something that's just really complex and maybe a little too difficult for an ordinary home buyer? Kind of how do you think about building houses these days?
I think the biggest thing that makes building a house worth it is your connections to different people in the trade industries and kind of
Hmm.
understanding the process of how the building goes. I don't usually suggest it to a new home buyer or a young person who's never owned a home or had the experience of
Hmm.
building, just because it's a difficult process that can sometimes cost you a lot of money if you don't do it the right way. So, but at the same time, it's all about buying the right piece of land, and it's all about building a house to the degree that you want it. And oftentimes that can be a stressful process, but it can also be the best way to get exactly what you want out of a house. So I teeter on that line, but I do suggest to maybe the younger crowd who doesn't have exactly experience in even owning a home to jump straight into that, just because it's a little more complex.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I know I've got my home, and the idea of building a house sounds super appealing, but part of me is just like those expenses and the planning and everything feels kind of overwhelming, and trying to even understand how much building a home would cost sounds like it'd be a really difficult problem to work out. And part of me feels like, hey, maybe if we built our house to spec,
we can get it for a good rate. Or, maybe on the other side, it will be so much more expensive than if we just went out and bought
Yeah.
something already pre-made. I just don't really know there. But it definitely is like one of those bucket list items of buying that perfect plot of land and building that perfect house that we want to move into one day.
And that's a really cool idea because you'll never walk around going, I wish my kitchen was a little bigger, or you because you kind of check all those boxes. So I love the idea for you for sure. I would just professionally give it a little more time and get a little more comfortable before jumping into that. But man, it's such a cool idea, and we've been talking with a smaller time builder out of the Little Rock area lately, who's kind of making his way up to Northwest Arkansas, the Fayetteville area, to start
Mhm.
building. And we've just had some really great conversations with him, and he's, as someone who's experiencing the business, loves the idea of building up here. And so we're going to kind of get some projects going with him, but it's still very appealing, and we still have a lot of development areas in this area to work with. So it's a cool idea, and that perfect piece of property is going to be out there for you when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm excited, especially for those lake and mountainside properties here around Northwest Arkansas. I bet people eat those up. We're looking
Cool.
at them ourselves.
Yeah,
Well, awesome. I know, Pat, thanks for sharing some of your real estate knowledge. I do have one real estate related question. We might come back to it, but I know we've got a lot of great things to talk about.
yeah,
Um, and so before transitioning, I do want to ask one more question, and that's about real estate technology. So, it's 2022, the time of this recording, middle of July. There's a lot of what seems to be innovation and technologies kind of floating around that may or may not being used. I'll give a few examples. So you mentioned already, video home tours. There's listing sites and agencies like Zillow that are making it easier than ever to see values of houses and compare homes. But then I've also even heard of people talking about blockchain or having real estate contracts being done as NFTs.
yeah.
Just wanted to ask, are there any bigger technologies that you're using on a day-to-day basis that have made your life easier, changed the game, or are there any exciting innovations that you've just kind of heard about and are waiting to hear pan out or looking forward to?
Yeah, two things. So, on the smaller scale, with when it comes to listing houses and getting the maximum amount of exposure on a house, because what we are as agents is we're just marketing people, and so more than 50% of sales happen basically online. So, listing photographs are possibly the most important thing that you can have when you're selling your house. Now, in a hot
Mm-hmm.
market, you start to go, oh, it's not that big a deal. The house will sell regardless. But very important when the market turns around and things kind of go a different direction. So, drone photography of properties, especially with acreage, is a massive change that's happened just in the past couple of years as drones have become more um, safe and consumer friendly, I guess we could say. So there's been a whole development of jobs and opportunities for photographers to be able to take on not only real estate photography but also drone photographs, and that's kind of built out. So as agents, we have our own drone photographers that we refer business to for our listings, because if I'm trying to sell 3 acres, the best possible way to do that is for someone to be able to look online and see an overview of the property that you really can't get anywhere else. And 20 years ago, that would have been a helicopter making that happen. So
Oh
uh,
man.
drone makes that a lot easier. And then the second thing I was going to say is there's a lot of really cool things happening with the blockchain. Shout out to Grant for
Mhm.
coming on and working with me and really pointing me in the direction of the crypto space. But there's going to be changes in the next 10 to 20 years, a lot in the real estate business as to how properties are closed on and recorded. So right now, you buy a house, you record it with the county, you get the deed, right? It's in your name now that it's recorded with the county. In the future, there's possibilities that the property will actually be recorded on the blockchain because the blockchain has such a deeper security base to it. It makes it almost I don't want to say impossible. That's probably a bad term to use, but makes
Mhm.
the safety and security of the filing systems um, a lot simpler to use and kind of mitigates risk almost in the way that properties are recorded. So I know that's confusing maybe to potentially non real estate knowledgeable people because it's confusing to me, but
Mhm.
that's something that we're looking forward to in the future. And there are already some companies that are messing with that in the
Yeah.
way that they're filing. So, and it's something that we're doing. We're working with these companies as well.
That's awesome. Staying on the cutting edge. Love
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I can imagine that, that space, it goes through cycles in the last couple of years of crypto and blockchain and NFTs kind of going through these cycles of being overhyped and people kind of being zealots of them and
Yep.
falling down and being overhyped and falling down. But I think at the end of the day, there are technologies kind of behind this that will enable different innovations.
Right.
And 50 years ago, someone would have thought it was insane that you can buy a car or a house online. And these days, people can purchase a house without ever seeing it.
Yeah.
And so I think similarly, we might not know how these new technologies will exactly pan out in real estate industry, but maybe the use of blockchains and NFTs and creating a digital purchasing experience that's much better than it is today. I think there's definitely some opportunity and some cool stuff that we're starting to see already, but are definitely
Yeah.
going to see in the future. And here's just a kind of a little a sneak peek. Oculus and VR is
Hmm.
blowing up right now, and so I could totally just imagine the next step of virtual home tours is that you throw on your headset or whatever it is that you have, and you are there with a real estate agent walking through a house and able to open up the refrigerator, play a game of pool down in the media room,
Yeah.
and just be on that property, but in the virtual space. I bet we're going to go in a direction like that. And of course, it will take some time, but some crazy stuff is around the corner.
For sure, and that's so cool. People in that industry, and I don't think everybody understands how much development is going into making that a reality. Whether it's being able to seamlessly purchase property using cryptocurrency, which kind of takes the money out of banks' control and into the people's hands, and we hear that all the time. But making that a reality, where you can literally send, 10 Bitcoin and receive property in
Mhm.
return, and all that being tracked on the blockchain makes it legitimate and skips so many of the detailed steps. So we don't have to get into that fully, but it's very exciting stuff. And again, shout out to Grant. We're paying attention very very deeply in that space as well.
Sweet. Love that. Love that. Well, before, I said that would be my last kind of question. I've thought of one more before
Mm,
kind of go on to other topics. But as maybe just a quick note, so, once again, you're a young real estate agent. Any advice out there that you'd give to other people who are younger, maybe not exactly sure what they want to do, but are thinking real estate could be for them? Any advice that you'd give to someone who's looking to start their real estate journey, at least look into it and see if it'd be for them?
Is this on the agent side or investing or purchasing?
Yeah, I mean, it can be both. I was thinking kind of from the agent side, but also for young home buyers as well.
Sure. Being a real estate agent is an awesome job. There's so many things that come with it. So we wear a lot of hats. We do a lot of cool things, but um, there's a need for it. And this space, like we just talked about, is evolving like crazy. So to get your feet in the door and just kind of move in the direction of whether that's getting licensed to become an agent or just becoming an investor of some sorts, or maybe that's just buying your first house to get kind of in the door. opens the door to quite a few different things that you can do. Um, Investing in real estate over time has always been a great thing in the long run for home buyers and sellers. So I would highly suggest if you're renting and you know that the thing that we say is if you're going to live in the house for 2 years, then it's usually a smarter idea to buy than it is to rent.
Mhm.
But if you're sitting there and you're working a job and you're saying, I'm growing my roots here for at least the next couple of years to maybe look into the option of buying a house and kind of stepping out of that comfort zone a little bit, because what it is it's an investment tool, and it's a way to learn really how money works, how investment works, how assets work, all kind of above while you're just living in a house. So, and I think Ryan can attest to that a little bit as well. So,
Yeah, no, I really like that answer there at the end. In that having a home, owning a home, buying a home does give you such a good window into learning tons of lessons about life. It gives you the ability to prioritize and think about finances in a different way. You're not just paying rent; you're building equity. It gives you the responsibility, and it kind of forces you to be a problem solver. Whenever you get home and you click your garage door opener and it doesn't open, well, shoot, now you got to figure out how the heck to fix that and get in your own house. It forces you to face, setbacks. Your AC goes out on the 4th of July and it's 100 degrees outside. Well, are you going to call someone and get it fixed today? You going to take it apart and fix it yourself? It's really is a breeding ground for education. And yeah, I've just learned a ton of stuff about life in the 4 years that I've had my house. So definitely a big proponent of buying a home if you can. I know it's very difficult in certain places. Shout out to the Midwest and Northwest Arkansas for still being a safe haven for people looking to get a first home. So
yes,
don't
sir.
sleep on it. But awesome. So been chatting for a little while now. Thanks for sharing your real
Yeah,
estate updates, journey advice. That's awesome. I know listeners will love that.
for sure.
Wanted to transition a little bit to some personal stuff, if you'd be game. So I know one of the biggest updates in your life since we last spoke is becoming a father,
Yeah.
and that is an awesome thing. I still am nothing but a dog dad, so I've got a ways to go before I'm learning about fatherhood. But you mind sharing a little bit about what being a father kind of means to you and some of the first big lessons that you've learned from having a baby?
Man, I can say that first off, it means so much because being a father means bringing a whole new meaning to life, to what you're doing, whether it's work, personal, um, and it it takes away from your sleep. Let's be honest. And there's some things like that, but um, Esther's a little over a year old, and the past year has just been like this crazy learning experience. And so I don't know if you want to dive in a little deeper on that, but it's crazy, and
Yeah.
I, I I love it.
There's love that you already have that just like positive outlook of being a dad. I think there's probably and I'll learn this on my own too one day, but I bet people react to having children in different ways, and some people feel really empowered and motivated. Some people, unfortunately, I think can feel overwhelmed or stressed or almost think, why them? Why now? And some people, their children become their everything, and some people just wish they didn't have children. So, love the thought about loving and raising children to the best of your ability. But let me ask you, before you had Esther, your baby girl, you know, did you have any expectations or thoughts of what being a dad would be like? Is everything panning out to kind of how you planned it, or has your whole kind of world been shaken up in an awesome way?
Man, I'd say a little bit of both, but
Mhm.
you know, it when Emily, announced, told me that she was pregnant and that we'd be having a baby, it was just a big. I always knew that I was gonna have kids, of course.
Mhm.
Come from a family of multiple kids and a lot of cousins and stuff, and I'm comfortable with that idea, but I'd never put it into thought when exactly it was going to happen. And they always say you're not entirely ready for it, but it really just made me snap into shape and put
Mhm.
priorities in the right places. I think we take for granted when we're single, and especially as guys, we just kind of, oh, I'll do what I want. I'll hang out, and now my life is a lot more intentional with the time that I do have, and the time that I have with the kids, the time that I have to work, the time that I have with friends. I'm a lot more intentional with that time. I don't take anything for granted, and that's something that I actually needed, was that structure. So
Mhm.
that's been one of the biggest eye opening things. And then just having Emily with me has been amazing. She's like a mother role model for me too. So she's taught me how to be a better parent, and she's a lot better at it than I am. So
Yeah.
I've learned and tried to get up to her level as far as her knowledge on raising kids and just um, just all the things. But yeah,
Yeah. I imagine, you kind of mentioned that, you know, having children has helped you, maybe better prioritize your time, be intentional with your time,
yeah,
be, perhaps present with your time and knowing when you're working, you only have so much time to do it, so you better get work done. And, when you're with your kids, it's important to be present with them. Um, one kind of two questions there. One, I assume that having children has been really, motivating for you. Do you feel like you have more energy for life and work these days? And then the second question is, what has having kids taught you about patience? I imagine that being a father, and especially, a young entrepreneur like yourself, kind of used to the go out and make things happen attitude, and put in a lot of work, expect kind of quick results and making things happen. But that doesn't really happen in the world of raising kids. I imagine that, you know whether it's getting better nights of sleep or teaching kids lessons like how to clean up after themselves and things like that, like all of that requires patience. So yeah, the two questions do you find yourself more motivated and energetic now that you have children, and what have you learned about patience?
man, I have my days. I'm motivated right now, but I've had a lot of coffee today, so that helps. But it's funny because I think that what I've learned is having kids and having that responsibility has taught me kind of the things that my expectations have to be put on hold a lot of the time. I say have to, but it's always better when they are, right? Like we hold expectations on what we're going to do. Okay, when I'm single, or if it's just Emily and I, well, okay, we can choose when we want to have dinner and then kind of go on from there throughout the night. But even something as simple as that, when you have kids, they really dictate a lot of the time kind of your next move and things. As soon as you settle down on the couch, you're going to probably have to get up and get a snack, right, or something. If you give a mouse a cookie, but um, just things like that. And so I have thought in the past that I've been a very patient person until I've had kids, and now it's 10 times that. So, um, but it's you look up at the end and you wake up in the morning and you go, it's a wonderful life, and I want to be able to provide for them, and that's like the number one thing.
Yeah, man, that's inspiring. I love that, and yeah, I know I'm watching closely to see all the lessons you're learning from being a father,
You have to
and
say,
also lessons from my
I have to
parents as
say
well.
that our friends, even the ones who, so we do have friends with kids. We have a lot of friends who don't have kids, have been super
Mhm.
supportive and cool. So just in allowing us to, be parents, but also have fun as young adults as well, and all the things that go into that. That was probably my biggest fear, was having a baby and then not ever seeing my friends again, because
Mhm.
that's part of life. Things change when you have a family, but just being able to bring the kids around and see the interactions between our friends and the people in our lives and the kids, it's a whole nother, like, it's just a cool thing.
Yeah, yeah, and for some perspective, the kids are the life of the party. Pat and Emily show up to an event and bring little Esther around, and no one really cares that Pat's there,
Yeah,
but
for
the
sure.
baby, on the other hand, is
She's a marketing genius. She doesn't know it,
celebrity.
but yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Kind of another question too is, how have you learned to manage your time? So, there's work with real estate. There's being present with your kids and patient with them. Then there's also, your own personal health and well-being. I know you used to be really active, worked out all the time. Have there been big sacrifices that you've had to make, or how have you kind of managed to readjust your schedule to, you know, have a healthy and happy balance?
Yeah, I've watched, you watch so many people on YouTube, on videos, on podcasts, talk about, oh, the importance of waking up and working out and doing your morning routines and stuff, and I've really kind of brought that to life. I've moved some of my workouts to the morning times to free up time, and really put, some of my extenuous working out regimens on hold, but
Hmm.
um, to be able to function as a family, and be a dad is there, and doing the right thing. And it was funny because when Emily was pregnant, she got to a point, of course, where she was, not really doing active things much. And I looked up and I was like, I can't be going to the gym. I got to be, I need to help her. I need to be there. I can't be, I, although I need to work out, I also need to not use this
Hmm.
time selfishly to go and do what I want to do, but rather. So that's part of the kind of the patience and part of the giving that I've learned as a dad, which is funny. But at the same time, Emily and I have pushed each other as well to be healthier and to make
Hmm.
smart choices together. And whether we're tracking our calories or going on walks together or doing things like that. So there's kind of a twofold there. It's like, we know that we have a certain amount of time in the evening to go on a walk, so we'll do that, right? And it's the intentionality of we know we have responsibilities, but we need to use the time that we have to take advantage of that. And man, as far as work goes, and we're blessed, we we've both had to make sacrifices for sure, but we found an amazing place for the kids to go to daycare, and that's given us the availability to work during the day. And I shut work off, right after 5, and call it a day. And if there's anything that doesn't get done, it just has to get pushed to the next day. And there's the occasional, weekend work, right? Everybody knows that realtors work on the weekends and do open houses and stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty intentional, 9 to 5, a little more than that, and then we know that it's game time, it's dinner time, it's bedtime, it's hang out with Emily time, and that's that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so, speaking of time, I know we're coming up on
Yeah,
a time. I want to be respectful of your time because you do have to go pick up the kids.
yeah.
A last kind of question. So, you've got a few kids, ages, correct me if I'm wrong, between like 1 and 6 years old. Um, yeah, kind of two questions. One is, what are you kind of most excited for in the next 5 or so years with your growing family? And two, do you yet have you built any kind of habits or family practices or something that you and your family just love to do together on a regular or semi-regular basis?
Well, yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if everybody does this, but growing up, would occasionally think, oh, if I, when I'm a parent, I'm definitely going to teach my kids, da da da. So,
Hmm.
being able to like look now and be like, oh my gosh, I have kids, so now what were those things I wanted to teach? Um, but being able to be like, okay, we're the parents now, and we get to kind of dictate a lot of beyond their education what they learn and experience in life. So I we've gotten in the habit of talking. They're young kids, but talking kind of about some financial stuff and trying to get them to grasp what investing is, and that it's over their head right now, but just to kind of have those conversations that they don't go very deep, but to where they're familiar with the words and the terminologies and kind of things. And
Yeah,
and
have them, sacrifice one candy bar today for two candy bars tomorrow.
Exactly. It's like, hey, if you put this money away, then you're able to have more later, and that's the easiest way to describe it. It doesn't make sense. It's not magic, right? But that's what it kind of seems like. But and then we've tried our best to do family dinners every night, and that's tough to do, but
Mhm.
we try to put it in motion as much as possible. Um, and then I wrestle with the kids constantly. That's basically my job. So
Yeah.
those are a couple of our rituals and some of the things we do.
Well, enjoy that wrestling while you can, because you're going to be outnumbered and outgunned
For
here
sure. For sure.
before you know
And that's actually my motivation to stay in the gym. So
it. Well, that's awesome. Well, Pat, man, it has been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for sharing more about your real estate journey, your knowledge, advice, and experience there. I know people get a ton out of that. I do every time we talk.
thanks,
And
man.
then thanks for sharing about, your new journey into fatherhood, being a dad, how you've learned these lessons from your family and kind of what you're taking forward. I've been super inspired to watch you and your family, and yeah, I can't wait to see what y'all end up doing. But before we close up, is there anything you want to, wrap up with or share with the audience?
That's it. We're working hard. Got a lot of big things. We did mention Emily and I are tying the knot officially here soon. So I don't know. By the time this comes out, we may already be married. But so that's super exciting, and just living life and loving it here in Northwest Arkansas. And if you're watching this, and I would love to connect. So my Instagram is Patrick Pulliam. It'll probably be in a description somewhere. And if you want to maybe
Mhm.
message me, say, hey, I listened, then we can message back and forth and maybe make that connection. So feel free.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, yeah, we'll have all of the links in the description that you'll need to reach out to Pat. That's at Patrick Pulliam on Instagram, but we'll make sure that that is included below. But Pat, thanks for taking the time out of your day. I'm not going to take up any more of your time as I know you have kiddos to go attend to, so appreciate that. Everyone listening out there, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. We're going to have more awesome guest speakers like Pat here on the podcast. So feel free to reach out to them and let them know you listened, loved, and cared for them. So thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. And as always, thank you for keeping it real with Ryan.